Hey all, Game Methuselah. Well, I hope you're enjoying the Emperor's New Clothes pandemic we're having. It's kind of interesting to watch. I somehow feel that I have written a role-playing campaign based on a very similar type thing, just sort of set it in the fantasy world, and seeing how we can control the entire world with some sort of little event that gets everybody on the same page and not necessarily looking in all the right directions. Everyone, I am sure now, is doing their self-imposed exile to keep them from gaining the Black Plague. And the interesting thing is, I thought, well, heck, I might as well do a video. I've been doing my own self-imposed recovery here after stepping on a nail. It used to be a little back teen and a Band-Aid, and I'd be up in 48 hours dancing. But nowadays, at my age, it seems like every time I get injured, it's a life and death event. So anyway, I want to do a long video on the Minimalist Game Master, how to start and run your own campaign. It's something I've been putting together based upon what a lot of people have asked me. I was going to do it. I've got sort of my materials here to talk about it, but I'm kind of tired still and lazy and haven't completely recovered. So I thought I would do a much more simpler video, but get something out there for you to watch, since I'm sure a lot of you are getting tired of watching reruns on television like I am. I wanted to talk about why you should put minions in your campaigns. Now, somebody said something I really like. When you role play, you should play the game, not the system. And I think that's really wise. And the reason is I have played untold amounts of game systems throughout the couple weeks I've been playing role-playing games. And a lot of them I like, and often I would find myself becoming very immersed in the game, immersed in the system, and immersed in their campaign world. None of that's really necessary. I think the most important thing always is to find something that you're passionate about and run that, because that's where you get the best campaigns. It's wise advice I got from Matt Colville when I kept asking, well, what do you guys want to play? And he would say, play what you love, because every time you play a campaign that you love, we all enjoy it. And that seems to be the most sound way to go. And I like minions because what minions do, I think, is allow you to branch from starting campaigns and starting games and moving your way from even modules and events, because you can add them in and substitute them for other creatures there. And I'll explain why. Minions came out of 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons, and it was one of the coolest things I thought had been brought into the game system. For those of you who don't know, a minion is basically a creature that is very low XP cost or very low point cost, depending on what game system you're using. And I've used minions in at least 3 game systems now. I love them. The idea is if you hit them, or if you catch them with a spell and they do not save, they die. So they're very easy to kill. But of course, they have attacks, they do damage. The big advantage in minions is basically you can have about 2 to 3 times or more minions to replace a standard creature. And that's where the rub comes in. I'm always frustrated early in a campaign, and that's usually where I use minions a lot, where people run into a game, they bust down the door, and they run into 6 goblins. Woo! Not very scary for a party of 5 adventurers. But that normally is the XP point, and a lot of times when people are inexperienced game masters, they depend on the rules that exist, the systems. Now, I use minions in both Dungeons & Dragons because I obviously run that. I also use them in the Fantasy Trip because I run that. And I've even worked them into running a Dragon Quest adventure, even though Dragon Quest is not my main campaign adventure. It is my friend Don's campaign system, and since he likes it, I have made up a couple adventures to, if at some point he needs me to fill in while he takes a coffee break, and run games. Now, they're really good for one reason, and the best reason is the thing I love the most. It's the feel of the game. It's the whole concept of making people feel like they're in a real world. The other thing about it is it makes sort of low-level, non-heroic characters who haven't got all their cool skills and abilities yet kind of badass, because all they got to do is score 1 hit, boom, monster's gone. But that still takes time, and minions can be a threat. Because if you are running a module, let's say, and it says that the adventurers run into 6 goblins, well, make them 12 to 18 minions. It's a much different dynamic. It feels like an orc lair, or a goblin lair, or a kobold lair, or whatever you run into. It doesn't seem like you ran into a party of scouting goblins. It really feels like you ran into a lair. Now you throw in an actual leader boss with them that has multiple hit points and some additional skills, or maybe magic, and you come up with a very effective battle that really draws people in the fact that they feel threatened. Minions can often be more dangerous than actual creatures because of sheer numbers. The fact that they can get onto flanks, the fact that they can put multiple attacks on 1 or 2 enemies, especially if they're non-combatants, can make the thing very dangerous. I was going to do a mambo on this, but it's pretty simple to understand. There is a quantity and quality to numbers. If you have lots of creatures, they don't have to be that good. Russians in World War II had that whole concept. Throw lots of Russians at the Germans, you're going to eventually win. And it proved to be true. In modern warfare, it tends to be a little less effective, but the point is still the same. A lot of poor opponents can often be very dangerous to 1 or 2 really excellent fighters because they can just get lucky. And that often happens in the campaign. Now, something else that has been added recently, my friend Steve Keys, who I've been running a little Dungeons & Dragons with, actually, he's been DMing and I've been playing greatly to my enjoyment, came up with a concept one night of multiple level minions. So you have a first level minion and a second level minion and a third level minion. And the simplicity of this is really easy. A first level minion is a minion. If you hit it, you do any damage, boom, gone. In the case of Fantasy Trip, of course, if you hit it, you get through the armor and you inflict a point of damage, boom, it's gone. So the concept is there. Any damage done to a first level minion will kill it. Second level minion is kind of interesting. You have to hit it twice. Or you have to do 1 wound hit that exceeds 10 points of damage or any critical. So fighter attacks, rolls a crit, the minion dies. A level 2 minion dies. If not, you do a hit on a minion, level 2, it now drops to a level 1 minion, and obviously then any additional hit will kill it. This is an interesting and fun factor in minions because it allows you to make minions that are substantially tougher. Now, you obviously add to their incremental point cost, but I would find that this is a much more interesting way, again, to have monsters that are very easy for the DM to run lots of. Also, it allows the DM to not have to keep a lot of paperwork. You know, they either have been hit once or they've hit twice, in which case they're gone. Or, again, you could have a level 3 minion. You get the point here. If you do 1 20-point hit to the minion, you destroy it. You do 2 criticals, you destroy it, or 3 hits of any type. Now, this makes even more interest because now the minions have different feels in the fight. You have bigger monsters that could be like an orc minion, might be a 2-hit minion. A bugbear minion could be like a 3-hit minion. You mix the different creatures together, and in the battle, there's still this overwhelming concept of fear because the thing about minions is being cheaper than actual monsters that have a full roll of hit points and abilities. They are still very dangerous. Now, you should cut down on minion damage, and that if you look at 4th edition, you can get an idea of how they figured minions were. A minion in 4th edition did a fixed point of damage. There was no dice roll. So if you got hit by a minion, it did 4 points of damage. If you got by another certain minion, it might do 6 points. If you got hit by, say, a dragon minion, it could do 20 points of damage. This was the concept. You could, for high-level adventures, roll a dragon and 10 little baby dragons that are all minions and attacking him. It adds for a very different dynamic in your combats. And it makes it fun. And it makes it interesting. And more, as I said, it makes it like a lair. My initial encounter in the Fantasy Trip, now, I was running the Twilight of Fae, which, of course, you know is my favorite. And in the initial battle that they had, they ran into 30 Cobalt minions. Now, In all fairness, my characters were experienced starting characters. In the fantasy trip, you start out with a 32-point character, and I started these people out with 34-point characters. There is a dynamic difference here in those 2 points and make the characters substantially better. But it was a party of 6 fighting 30 minion kobolds. And I often thought when I built this could be a very, very dangerous encounter. And I didn't necessarily know how well it would go. Now, of course, the characters were killing things in droves, dropping multiple hex fires that kill, 3 minions at a time, different types of things, sweeping blows that could kill a whole group in front. It didn't really make any difference. But the point, again, is you change up the dynamic. And for you people who are not running your own campaigns, which of course I think you should be, you can add minions into any module you play. Just like I said earlier, you open up a module, it says there's 10 orcs. Okay, you make 20 orc minions. It's a very different battle with about the same level of risk to the party. A great thing to try out. It also adds to your simplicity of play, allowing you to exacerbate the threat level to your players, as well as embellishing the concept of a large, vast universe of monsters. So, something to think about. Now, I want to get back to you next time out and talk to you about how to start the Minimalist Game Master campaign. And the reason I want to do that is I know a lot of people out there, like me at the time, have lives. And we're not always quarantined in our homes where we're forced to do nothing else. But since you are, let me just say the first thing to start with is draw 3 dungeons. 2 small ones that can be locations, paladin monasteries, dwarven tower. It doesn't make any difference. And then draw a really large 70s vintage multiple level dungeon. And the interesting things about this is when you have a dungeon like this, you can always fall back to it. So that when you come with your group and you sit down and you have your adventure for the evening design, and then of course, like many of my groups do, they say, nah, we don't want to go there, we want to go over here. You can just reach in and pull out one of your small adventures or say, well, Maelstrom, the Great Dungeon, has this creature, whatever it is that you've written up on your 3x5 card, or used one of the great little D&D aids if you're a D&D player, and bought the monster cards, which you can always have in your 3x5 boxes, and whip them out and start using them. But the nice thing to do when you do that is remember, don't forget the minions. We'll talk more soon. I'm feeling lots better, so I hope to be doing some other videos. I'm going to put some more miniature giveaways on my Patreon page, so I'm going to do that as soon as I get off and finish this video and get it edited up. And I'm starting to enjoy getting back into painting. The one thing about feeling better and being stuck in your house, what the heck else do I have to do but paint? So until we have a chance to speak again, fight me, devils, fight, for I hate peace. Everybody be healthy out there, and game on.